Praise be, bitches! Welcome to InsaneLayne Reviews Handmaid's Tale. In this episode, an overview of the world of Handmaid's Tale and some of the elements in it. Spoilers for all of Season 1. I will be looking at the themes, the locations, and the realization of bringing the book to a TV screen, the whole kit and caboodle. However, the acting comments and character comments will be in a separate video, so look for that. Let's start with colors. Obviously, color plays a huge role in the world of Handmaid's Tale. Everything is assigned a color. The handmaids themselves are red, wives are blue, Martha's are a pale green, guards and eyes are black, medical staff is white, aunts in the show are seen in brown and dark green, whereas in the book they're only mentioned as being in brown. There could be any number of reasons for this change, but I'm guessing it's the most obvious. Nobody looks good in head-to-toe brown. And let's face facts, this is still a TV show, however a realistic one, so it still has to look good on the screen. Little girls are in head-to-toe pink and little boys in blue. And then we have the Econo wives, who in the book are said to wear 3 colors: the red of the handmaid, the blue of the wife, and the green of the Martha, because they serve all 3 roles. However, what seems to be the only time we have yet seen an Econo wife in the show, I mistook her for a Martha because at first glance they appeared to be dressed the same. This seems like a very odd mistake for this show to make, and I hope this gets corrected in future. In the world of Gilead, color is code. It says everything. It tells everyone around you not who you are, but what you are. And the what is all that matters in Gilead. There is no self-expression, no creativity, no individuality. You are the role society hands you, and you're supposed to be silent and grateful. Now we'll look at the order and the structure of Gilead. We see a lot of the order, but not a lot of the structure. And what I mean by that is we see a lot of what roles there are in Gilead, but we don't see a lot of how they're connected or how the ranks work, how they're assigned. We do know some things. We know there are military ranks, commanders at the very least. Fred refers to Nick as being lower ranking. We know why handmaids are handmaids, that's simple. But why are some women handmaids and some Econo wives? What decides between an aunt and a Martha? Why is Nick a chauffeur and a gardener and not one of the guys patrolling the streets or following a baby around? Moira says that her lover was declared an unwoman and sent to the colonies. This makes me ask a few things. An unwoman appears to be a woman that can't get pregnant. Okay, I get that. But that makes Serena Joy an unwoman, and all of the Marthas, or they would be handmaids. So why aren't they in the colonies? There has to be more to it than just fertility. Why are some infertile women being kept and given jobs and others sent off to die? This process of classing people, both male and female, is something that I hope gets explored in a lot more depth as the series goes on. For now, I'm filing this under More Information Wanted in Season 2. Another big part of any world is the philosophy. This is where I got to point at the book for a while, and I won't make a habit of it, but I have to this time. This is not a knock on the show, but by the very nature of it, you have a lot more room for world building in a book than in 10 hours of television. For a 10-hour series, it's amazing they were able to fit in as much as they did. But what I didn't see enough of was the philosophy of Gilead. We've seen the order, the day-to-day function, but we haven't been told why it was decided to do things this way. To be fair, even the book does not have a lot of detail, but there are references to propaganda, and propaganda seems almost conspicuously missing from the show. Also, the religious aspects of Gilead are commented on a lot more fully in the book, but again, books have room for that kind of thing. So I'm looking for a little more of this in Season 2. This brings me to the leader of Gilead, the man at the center of the commanders. I want to know more about him. I don't think we even heard his name. I hope we see more of him in Season 2, as he could serve very well as a vehicle to explore the philosophy and why things are being done the way they are and where did these ideas come from. I think it would be really interesting if we see maybe Of Glen return as his handmaid, or maybe, dare I say it, Janine. Speaking of Janine, brutality. There's just no other word for it. massive props to the show again for not shying away from any of it, and also for not making it gratuitous or sensationalizing it. My best example for this is the hand removal scene of Commander Putnam. It's very bright, it's clean, it's sterile, and it's calm. There is no dialogue in the scene. The doctors move in an efficient and practiced manner, and everything is medical and clinical. And wow, is it gross and disturbing, and made me a little queasy, not gonna lie. But it is balanced, it is honest, and it is exactly what it should be. Wings off to them on that one. And while what is being done is extreme, it's one of the most extreme punishments that we see, it is also one of the least brutal in terms of how it is being carried out. This is one of only 2 times we see a man punished. And here Commander Putnam, while he is being horribly, horribly mutilated, I do not wish to downplay that, it is done in a clinical, medical, non-painful way. That is not true of the other time we see a man punished. I am going to comment more on that later in this video. For now, I will move on to the other time that we see this medical, clinical style of punishment, which is Glenn. Now, there is a common thread between the two, which is crime. They have both committed a crime, but they have both either submitted or been submitted to the will of the state, and so the state is carrying out its punishment in what it feels, I suppose, is a humane way. Leading to the question, why are these two treated one way and the other guy treated the way he is? I will comment on that when I get to that. For now, let's compare this to what we see of how the other women are treated throughout the show. Take the scene where June is punished after trying to escape by being strapped down to a wooden board and having the soles of her feet mercilessly beaten for God knows how long. I am both a masochist and a sadist, and I would neither allow this to be done to me or do it to someone else, even if they were asking me to. And then we have Janine's eye, and a couple of the other handmaids as we see later. I point out, she is not brought back to the Red Center sleeping area in a hospital gown. She is in the same nightgown as all the other girls, and she is bleeding and in pain. Do we think she was taken to a hospital, sedated, and operated on? Or is it much more likely they took her up to the old chem lab and used their cattle prods to burn her eye out of her skull? Or something equally horrible. I could start listing all the ways I can think of that could be true in this world, but I would have to make a whole separate video and not sleep for a week. Then there's being shocked, slapped, and beaten on a daily basis. One thing I will point out, though, is that if you pay attention, you will notice something. It's the women who punish the women, and the men who punish the men. Almost 100% of the time. There's only one notable exception, and again, I'm getting there. It is Aunt Lydia and Serena Joy that beat off Fred. When Emily is mutilated, it's Aunt Lydia who's there, and the same when Janine is there in the hospital later on. Think of when Offred is being questioned by the Eye. The first thing that popped into my head is, what is Aunt Lydia doing here? Why is she here at all? Why would he bring her? Why would she need to be here? And we immediately see why. Because she's the one that will beat Offred when she, I guess, hesitates to answer or the Eye doesn't like her answers. And the Eye is above both of them. Keep this in mind. We later see that Eyes and guards are above even wives. And yet, he is still not allowed to lay hands on her in any way. And when Commander Putnam is judged, it's the other commanders that are judging him. It's the men who decide the fate of one of their own. Moving on, we also get a few looks at the wall, perhaps the most extreme form of punishment. Second most extreme. The first is the most expositive. We see a priest, a doctor, and a gay man have been hung, each wearing a bag over their heads with a symbol on it that represents the crimes they've committed for which they have been executed. Their crimes being a priest, a doctor, and a gay man. Side note, while it is not stated in the show, the doctor, the bag over his head, has a symbol of a fetus on it, In the book, it is clarified that he has been hung for having, in the past, while it was legal, performed abortions. I found it strange that Offred does not clarify this in the show. I mean, why shy away from it? And it would make more sense within the world. I also noticed that during Aunt Lydia's long and very entertaining rant against birth control, she too avoids the word abortion. This just seems very odd and out of character for this show. The next big appearance of the wall is when the handmaids are cleaning the blood off it. This makes me ask a couple of questions, so forgive me if I veer into movie critic mode for a second. If people are hung on the wall, why is there blood on it? And if people are also lined up and shot, why is the blood obviously starting from a very high point and having dripped down the wall? I don't know if this is a mistake or if it'll be explained later, but I will be keeping it in mind and watching. And now the salvagings. The most extreme form of punishment in Gilead, I'll say. The word itself has a lot of meanings. It implies, obviously, being saved. The saving of the soul, that is. That doesn't include the body in Gilead. And it's the scene that seems to break the rule of same gender punishing same gender. We see a man being beaten to death by women. However, it's said that he committed a crime against one of them, so why should they not be the ones to take retribution? Well, the simple answer is they shouldn't, because that's not how things are done in Gilead. So why is this being done? I believe this is being done because this is not judgment. They are not passing judgment and deciding whether this man deserves some form of punishment. They are only being asked to carry that punishment out. They are being used as a weapon, as a method of execution. They are not judge and jury. As the handmaids form a circle around the condemned, the guards holding the guns form a circle around the handmaids. This is why the salvaging does not violate the same gender punishes same gender rule. Men have made the decision, and men will see that it is carried out. Now, don't think for a second that this is a case of men being afraid to get their hands dirty. Oh no, it's a little smarter and a lot more cruel than that. Think about the life of a handmaid. The repression, the subjugation. Let's not forget the rapes, the forced impregnation, and forced surrogacy. Now think about Jezebel's. That is the commander's place of release, the place where they can go and relax and get away from the repression that is Gilead. So it makes sense that they would recognize that handmaids would need some form of an outlet as well. And being a government of evil bastards, they said, let's take this a little further. How can we use this as yet more control? The women are definitely forced into doing this, but the true crime of it is that they make it appealing. They go to great lengths to make these women want to do this. They get no relaxation, no spare moment just to be, no outlet or release for all the rage and anger they must be feeling every minute of every day. So the state will give them this, a state-sanctioned way for them to release all of their rage and anger and let it all out on someone else. As long as it's not against the government, they're okay with that. They recognize people will have strong emotions, and those have to be dealt with and managed. And this is how they manage. Without this, who knows what might happen? Maybe the handmaids would organize. Maybe they would rally. Maybe there would be a coup, like there already has been, like that formed Gilead. It makes sense they'd be afraid of history repeating itself. Getting into the nuts and bolts, I love that Aunt Lydia calls this a moment of freedom. Let's think about that. She says they are free to do whatever they want. But this could not be further from the truth, because they are literally surrounded by men with guns, and it goes without saying they are expected to do what they're told. Beat this man to death. Murder him, or we may murder you. Now the insidious part. How to work up a murderous rage in a bunch of normally non-violent women. Well, this is where the really insidious part comes in. We'll tell them this guy is a rapist. He raped one of them. And she was pregnant. And the baby died. That's just about perfectly crafted to whip these women into a murderous frenzy. This scene is taken almost verbatim from the book. And I say almost because it's actually something in the next scene that's missing. And I will say, I feel like this was a big misstep for the show, and I'm very curious as to why this was done, because it would have made a lot more sense to keep it the way that it is in the book. And again, I am not at all saying that adaptations in other forms have to follow the source material at all, and it is not about trying to copy paste as many scenes and lines into your other versions that you can. That has often led to some very, very bad movies and shows. But the missing information is significant, and I feel that it had a negative impact on the overall show. That it could have really added a level of something and a lot of information very easily. Major spoilers for the book here, as if that's not obvious. In the world of the show, we see the salvaging in all its brutal glory. I will comment on that in the episode 1 review. And this is exactly how it is in the book. They beat the guy to death and then they walk home. Like nothing happened. Like you do. However, in the show, that is where it is left. The dead guy is a rapist. Justice has been served. But in the book, that man is revealed to be a member of the resistance, of Mayday. It is, I believe, the first mention of Mayday in the book. This would have added so many layers, and so easily. 1. We now know the government is lying to its own people, because it's clear that everyone involved, including Aunt Lydia, the guards, and certainly the handmaids, believed this man was a rapist. But with him actually being a resistance fighter, we get a lot of answers to a lot of questions. What does the state do to the men who take action against them? We see plenty of what they do to the women, but what about the men? And why like this? They could just shoot this guy, or disappear him. But no, he will be called a rapist, handcuffed, and thrown into the middle of 30 boiling mad victims who are then given permission to beat him to death. This is brutal, even for Gilead. Begging the question, why do this way? And why do it in public? And the answer again is simple. You do it in public so everyone will see. Everyone will see the power of the state. The citizens get to feel safe as they think they've seen justice carried out, and resistance members get a warning. This is what will happen to you if you try to stand against us. Keep in mind, we learned there are Mayday members within this circle of handmaids, and they too are being forced to kill one of their own now. See how much darker knowing all that makes it? A few last thoughts on the world of Handmaid's Tale for now. The lack of technology. There is almost none. We see no cell phones, no tablets, no laptops, no flat screens, no Blu-rays, no cameras of any kind. In a society based on spying on your neighbors and reporting on them to the state, why don't they have more security cameras on every block than London? This for sure needs a lengthy exposition. I know there are some comments about things being done in an old-fashioned or simpler way, but not enough to cover this tech hole. Remember that this is a dystopian society based only a couple of years away from where we are right now. Look around the room you are currently in and mentally remove every piece of technology. Now go through your entire house. How long did that take? Now imagine doing that for every house, on every block, not just for a couple of miles, but for entire states. It's a massive amount of waste of both materials and resources. And it makes a lot of things much harder. Technology exists because it makes life easier. That's why people invent it. And there are things that we see in Gilead that could be done a lot better with better technology. There are a few really glaring examples of this, but I will point to one of the most obvious. They don't want handmaids running away. Aunt Lydia even says, during the brutal tagging scene, that they are such a precious resource we can't risk you getting lost. They really mean escaping. So the handmaids are given an ear tag, like a cow, with a number on it. But that's all it is. It's a piece of metal punched through their ear. Why? Why do they not have RFID chips packed with cyanide in their necks? Seriously, think about it. RFID tracking chip. The government can track your every movement and add some cyanide in there that if you leave your designated zone, shall we say, will explode and kill you in 30 seconds. Nobody is escaping that. So why not do this? And there's other places where technology would be of great benefit. They have food shortage issues. The application of technology has largely limited famine and starvation. Not to the extent that it could, but it certainly helps. So why is technology not being applied to growing food? Or, the most glaring of all issues, why is technology not being applied to fertility? You have an epidemic of infertility, and yet there is no mention of fertility treatments, fertility drugs, or IV insemination. Why? I need an answer on this. So this too gets filed under I hope we get more information in season 2. The women can't read laws. This is clever for a totalitarian dictatorship, especially when based on religion, as the limiting of literary material is all about the control of information. Think for a second of North Korea and how brainwashed from birth everyone born there is, because they are only told what the state allows them to be told, which is whatever the state needs them to believe to serve its current best interests, which is almost never the people's best interest. It's pretty much the same in Gilead. Think of the Bible being under lock and key. Even wives are not allowed to read. This serves several purposes. First, we get the ancient misogynistic and sexist ideas that women shouldn't read because it gives them ideas, and, that's just bad for you if you have ovaries. But this also very much limits what people know about the world that they live in and the world outside the world that they live in. There are no newspapers. There is no 6 o'clock news. There is no internet. There's no fact-checking or Politico. They know only what the government tells them. Those in power control reality in a very real way. They decide what the citizens' reality is. One of my favorite touches is the removal of street signs. Makes it damn hard to run away when you have no idea where you are and no idea which way to run. There will be more of these world overview videos coming out. As I move through the episodes, I will make additional parts to this to talk about other things as they come up. I'm not doing them here, both because I don't want this video to be too long, and I don't want to get too far ahead of where I am in terms of writing the episodic reviews, so you're going to have to bear with me here. Those are my initial thoughts and breakdowns on the world of Handmaid's Tale as presented by Hulu. I am InsaneLayne. Blessed be, bitches. Bye-bye.